When I first looked at it, I thought that this big empty space would look really cool and artistic, which was actually the vision I had in my mind ever since I started working on this building project. But when I saw the actual result, it just looked like a messy and ugly disaster. So, my main goal for today is to try my best to turn this mistake into something good and useful. While I am busy working on fixing this area, I will also be reading through stories and messages that have been sent to me by the people who follow my channel. I want to say a very big thank you to every single person who took the time to share their personal experiences with me. Let us go ahead and start with the first story that was sent in by one of my subscribers. The first question is, am I doing something wrong by possibly breaking up the marriage of someone who used to be a close friend of mine? I will try to keep this story short, even though there are a lot of details to explain. I am a 20-year-old man, and I met a woman who is 23 years old on the internet. We started talking to each other almost every single day, and we became very close friends. Eventually, we both developed romantic feelings for each other, and we started dating online, even though we had not met in person yet. After several months passed, our connection started to get weaker, even after we finally met each other face to face. It was only through her brother that I found out she was actually married. This news came as a complete shock to me, and I felt absolutely devastated and heartbroken. She had never mentioned to me that she was married, nor did she ever say that she was in any kind of relationship with anyone else, even though I never specifically asked her about her relationship status. I told her sister that we had been dating and that she had basically cheated on her husband with me. I felt like I was betraying her trust by telling her sister everything, but at the same time, I was going through so much emotional pain and confusion. I stopped talking to this woman completely. Later on, I received a message from her husband, asking me to explain what had happened between us. I replied to him and told him the whole truth about our relationship. I guess that their marriage might be having problems now because of this, but I do not know for sure what is happening in their life. I have not heard anything from them since then, but lately, I have been feeling a very strong sense of guilt, and I keep wondering if I did something wrong. I did not know that I was becoming part of an affair, and it is something I would never have done if I had known the truth from the beginning. Do you have any advice that could help me feel less guilty or help me deal with these bad feelings? I appreciate that you are being so thoughtful. It is clear that you are a kind and caring person, but to be completely honest, I think you are being too hard on yourself. After all, she is an adult woman who made a conscious choice to start an online relationship with you while she was still married to another man. If her marriage is having problems now because of what happened, those are just the consequences of her own actions and choices. It is not your fault. Also, she intentionally hid this very important information from you. As you said yourself, you would not have continued the relationship if you had known she was married. So no, I do not think you have any reason to feel guilty. You handled the situation in the way you thought was best once you knew all the facts. I believe your reaction was completely fair and justified. When her husband contacted you, you did the right thing by telling him the truth. It was not your job to lie and protect his wife's secret. Also, I do not think it matters whether this was a physical affair or just an emotional one. In fact, I doubt that the distinction is important in any situation. Looking for romantic attention from someone other than your partner, without your partner knowing and agreeing to it, is fundamentally wrong. And if she did not have permission from her husband, I am very sure she knew that what she was doing was improper. Give yourself some time and space to heal. I truly hope you will start to feel better about this situation soon. You were tricked and deceived. Therefore, I do not believe you have any grounds to feel guilty about this. I also want to briefly remind you that my opinions on any topic are never final or absolute. I am just a regular person on the internet who plays Minecraft, giving my personal perspective on these different life situations. If you disagree with my views on any of these points, that is perfectly okay. We are not expected to agree on every single issue in life. That was indeed a very unusual story to read. Let us now move on to look at another narrative. Alright, the next email is titled, "Am I in the wrong for being upset that my boyfriend is not invited to my aunt's wedding?" The person who wrote this says, "To give you some background context, this story involves quite a bit of history, so here it goes. I am a 20-year-old woman, and when I was in high school, I lived with my aunt. This is also a long story, but basically, my mother did not have enough money to support me financially. My aunt, who is 31 years old, was kind enough to let me live with her, and we have stayed very close throughout our entire lives. Anyway, when I was in high school, I was dating a young man whose older brother was about the same age as my aunt. Those two eventually started dating each other, but I broke up with the younger brother shortly after I started university, which was located very far away from home. About 3 months after that breakup, I started dating a fellow student from my university. This turned out to be a very good relationship, and we decided to move in together. We got a cat as a pet, and after dating for 1 year, we decided that it was time for him to meet my family. I was 19 years old at that time, and I told my mother that my boyfriend was coming to visit for the Christmas holidays. I did not think much about it because it seemed like the natural next step in our relationship, and I was very excited to introduce him to my family. I assumed that I would be staying at my aunt's house during Christmas until my mother called me and told me that my aunt had said my boyfriend was not allowed to stay at her house. She said that they were very tired from work and that she did not want to host someone she did not know well. In the end, we stayed with my mother, who was also very tired from her job and lived in a small recreational vehicle parked on someone else's property. She did not have enough space for guests. We spent a few nights with her, and then we ended up sleeping on various couches for the rest of the week because my mother and her partner had to work, and I felt bad about making them sleep on a tiny couch inside the small vehicle. This situation made me feel very embarrassed and ashamed. The parents of my friends were much more welcoming and hospitable to my boyfriend than my own family members were. Right now, my aunt is getting married at the end of this week, and I am traveling there to attend the wedding as a bridesmaid. My boyfriend is explicitly not included on the guest list. Here is the really shocking part. One of the other bridesmaids in the wedding party will be staying on my aunt's sofa for the entire week of the wedding. A woman whom my aunt barely knows is being allowed to sleep on her couch during one of the most stressful and busy weeks of her life. Yet, my boyfriend and I were not allowed to stay on her couch during the Christmas holiday. Furthermore, it is not like this is a small, private wedding. Many extended family members are coming, including the spouses of people whom my aunt barely knows. At this point, it feels like she is deliberately excluding him, and I am feeling very frustrated because my boyfriend's family has been nothing but extremely welcoming and kind to me. They accepted me into their family with open arms. I went to his cousin's wedding. I joined his family for their Thanksgiving celebration. I feel like I am a real part of his family, whereas my own family clearly excludes him from gatherings and refuses to let him stay in their homes. I understand that it is her wedding and that she has the right to invite whoever she wants, but I still feel deeply hurt by this. Am I overreacting? I am really conflicted because, on one hand, if I were in your position, I would definitely feel offended as well. For example, if I am part of the wedding party and a family member, I would expect to receive an invitation that includes a +1, especially if many other people are being given the same privilege. That does seem somewhat unfair and disingenuous. However, on the other hand, it is your aunt's wedding and you are completely right. She has the absolute right to invite whomever she chooses. It is her special day, and weddings cost a lot of money. It is possible that it is simply a matter of budget constraints. I cannot say for certain. I would not feel comfortable bringing this up before the wedding and causing a scene. That would seem counterproductive, and your aunt is likely already under a lot of stress. This situation also reminds me of her refusal to let you both stay in her home during Christmas. It is her house, and she is entitled to decide whether or not she wants to host you both on her sofa. However, I agree with your feelings. I would also feel slighted, especially if I had lived there for a long time. Perhaps at some point after the wedding is over, you may need to have an honest conversation with your aunt, find out the real reasons for her actions, and explain that you feel your boyfriend is not being welcomed into the family. So, no, I definitely do not believe you are being unreasonable or overreacting for feeling this way. I would feel exactly the same way, and I might even react in a somewhat petty manner, which I do not recommend doing. I would just advise waiting until after the wedding is finished and then starting a conversation about the matter. Also, did you mention that your aunt started dating your boyfriend's older brother? Did we just overlook that detail? I find that to be rather strange. Is that not, in some small way, weird? It is, at the very least, a noteworthy coincidence. Perhaps I am mistaken, but that strikes me as odd. Very well, let us move on. If it is not completely obvious by now, I must confess that I have absolutely no plan design for this construction project. I am essentially making it up as I go along, but I do have a clear goal: to build a library. I have always admired the natural and organic patterns that are created when TNT explodes. Therefore, my intention is to carefully follow the shapes and contours left by the TNT explosion, hoping that the final result will look aesthetically pleasing. I am not sure what the result will be. We will have to wait and see. Alright, this subscriber has sent an email with the subject line, "My mother is cheating on my father." The author writes, "I am a teenager, and for a very long time, I have known about my mother's infidelity towards my father, to the point where I have lost track of exactly how long it has been going on. By now, it must be at least 4 years. I am feeling lost and unsure of what action I should take. I love my mother very much, but I hate her actions. From my point of view, I am in a difficult and precarious situation because I have two bad options. Either I confront my mother, force her to stop her behavior, and keep this knowledge only between us to preserve our family unit, which would consequently damage my relationship with her, or I tell my father, thereby breaking up our family during my teenage years. I hate this situation because both alternatives are profoundly unfavorable. My father deserves to know about the deception she has been practicing, but I genuinely doubt I have the courage to do so. My father's relatives live in a different country, while my mother's family is larger and everyone lives within my home country. As a result, the majority of my extended family who live nearby are on my mother's side. My sister is older and has recently started university. It would undoubtedly be devastating for her to discover this information, but at least she is moving forward in her life and is now an adult, so she would not have to deal with our parents' situation to the same extent that I do. I am uncertain if my perspective sounds selfish in saying this, as it would obviously be painful for her too. I recognize this, but I believe it would be more harmful if she were younger, or even worse, a small child. I am at a loss regarding what to do, and I have been burdened with this knowledge for years, which is progressively consuming me and weighing me down. All of my close friends know about the situation, and they agree that I am in a terrible predicament. I beg you to share your thoughts on this matter. I want to start by stating that this situation is indeed dire, and you should absolutely seek guidance from a professional counselor or therapist. You should not be forced to bear the emotional burden of this situation or its entirety alone. I possess no authority or expertise on any subject, so I will refrain from elaborating extensively, but I believe that if I were in your circumstances, I would begin by confiding in your older sister about the ongoing situation. In doing so, you would at least have a trusted confidant within the family with whom you could discuss this, and perhaps you could work together to devise a plan to address it. However, I am confident that whatever decision you make regarding this information will be the correct one for you. It is crucial to acknowledge that none of this is your responsibility or your fault. Any difficulties your parents encounter as a result of the truth coming to light are not attributable to your disclosure or sharing of the truth. Rather, they stem from pre-existing issues within their relationship. My apologies, that is all I shall contribute on this topic. It is imperative to consult a mental health professional, as this is a deeply distressing experience, and they will offer more valuable insights and support than any YouTuber ever could. Very well, here is the subsequent submission from a subscriber. They have written, "I am seeking some insight or perhaps merely an observation regarding a situation involving an individual I recently encountered. I am a male student in secondary high school, leading a relatively comfortable life with promising prospects for my future. The narrative begins approximately 1 year ago when my father suggested that I consider relocating to the opposite side of the country for my studies. The town to which I was considering moving was his former hometown. He grew up with acquaintances whom I know still reside there, as do my grandparents. At that time, I was living on the outskirts of a large metropolitan city and harbored some apprehension about commuting approximately 3.5 hours daily to attend senior high school. The prospect of being closer to my godfather, my cousins, and my grandparents, particularly given that my grandmother, who is 80 years of age, is not in the best of health, persuaded me to make the move. The arrangements for housing and essential governmental documentation were finalized for the spring of this year, and I was accepted into the premier senior high school in the vicinity. Everything appeared to be proceeding flawlessly until 3 days ago. My friend Rihanna inquired if I would be interested in going into the city for some lunch and shopping. As her friend and being on the verge of relocating in a week's time, I agreed to go with her. Upon my arrival, I met with Rihanna and 2 of our mutual acquaintances. We ate lunch, did some shopping, and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. After a while, Rihanna proposed that we visit a park to enjoy some beverages, including alcoholic drinks. I agreed, as did the others. We then met up with an individual named Isaac. A few hours later, we had purchased some Fanta, several cans of Monster Energy drink, and a bottle of vodka. I will not delve into the specific details of what transpired, but I became significantly intoxicated, as did Isaac. I am unable to recall the events that happened between us. However, my friends, who were not as heavily under the influence, informed me that we had been cuddling, kissing, and engaging in a great deal of affectionate behavior. For the record, I have never experienced such intimacy with other males before, nor have I generally been particularly close with females. The following morning, upon waking up, I learned the entirety of the events from my friend Rihanna, and I was utterly mortified and embarrassed. I thought, when did I become gay? I spent that day confined to my residence, as my parents had largely lost all faith in me due to the incident. However, the narrative does not conclude there. Later that day, I entertained the notion that perhaps we should meet again. Why not? Consequently, I extended an invitation to Rihanna, another friend, and Isaac to join me at my residence the following day, and all of them readily agreed to come over. Back at my home, we engaged in pleasant conversation and activities. We discussed various topics, took my dog for a walk, and enjoyed pizza for dinner. Following dinner, Rihanna and the other friend departed, leaving me solely in the company of Isaac. We spent the subsequent hour reclining on my bed, scrolling through TikTok videos, and listening to music. It felt pleasant, almost too pleasant. I actually asked Isaac on a couple of occasions if my actions indicated that I was gay, and he consistently dismissed my concerns and reassured me. He is, in fact, gay and has been aware of this aspect of his identity for a considerable period of time. We remained at my residence, engaging in the aforementioned activities until dusk. I accompanied him to the bus station as he departed. He expressed considerable sadness at the prospect of my relocation to the other side of the country. The train journey would be approximately a 5 or 6 hour duration, and he repeatedly exclaimed how much he would miss me. Now, I am composing this email while packing my belongings into boxes, as I am scheduled to depart tomorrow. However, I cannot shake this pervasive sense of melancholy and sadness that I will be unable to share in his company for at least another month or 2. Just prior to the conclusion of the academic year, I experienced a rupture with my group of friends, as one of them was behaving in an exceedingly rude manner and consistently subjected me to harassment. Consequently, during the summer months, I developed an increasing yearning for close companionship and friendship. Now that I am unable to be with him, I am experiencing profound sadness and a sense of hopelessness, to the point where I am beginning to regret my decision to relocate and potentially lose him. My inquiry was, perhaps, whether my actions indicate that I am gay. In my life, I have not truly had the opportunity to explore my sexuality. The fact that I am experiencing these feelings makes me both uncomfortable and frustrated. Why must I be grappling with these emotions precisely as I am preparing to move? I felt compelled to articulate these thoughts as I wished to move forward, yet I still struggle to envision my life without him. I do not believe it is prudent to alter one's life plans for someone whom you have only just met. At times, one encounters an exceptional individual, but the timing is simply not favorable. It is unfortunate, but it does occur. However, I consider it remarkable that you have found someone with whom you genuinely enjoy spending time, and it is clear that you both reciprocate affection. You should absolutely maintain consistent communication while you are apart and make an effort to spend time together whenever you are in the same vicinity. Especially considering you are relocating to an entirely new city, it would be beneficial to have someone from your hometown to converse with. And who knows, if you maintain contact, perhaps in the future, this connection could evolve into something more if you ever find yourselves residing in the same city again. Or, if you are genuinely committed to this, the option of pursuing a long-distance relationship is always available. It is not my place to dictate your sexual orientation. That is a journey of self-discovery for you to undertake on your own. Individuals continue to send me emails with inquiries about their sexuality. It is a significant volume of correspondence. I am not in a position to definitively determine anyone's sexual orientation. However, I believe this experience has provided you with considerable clarity regarding yourself and your preferences. After all, you are drawn to this individual. Perhaps you simply need to approach this one person at a time and see where it leads. Furthermore, and with all due respect, as someone who has experienced my fair share of waking up after a night of consuming alcohol and having no recollection of events or their sequence, it is advisable to exercise caution and be careful. I am delighted that things worked out favorably and that you found someone you like and with whom you shared a wonderful experience. But this presents a vastly different scenario if you consumed excessive alcohol and did not desire any of these occurrences to happen. Therefore, please exercise prudence and be safe in the future. Your email was exceptionally well written. Relocating to new environments is invariably a daunting prospect. You will undoubtedly excel. Let us now proceed to another email before I forget to mention it. If you have a story you would like me to read in a video, you can submit it via the email address provided in the video description, or perhaps I will display it on the screen. It is located somewhere in the information section. The submitted stories have been exceptionally well crafted, making it quite challenging to select which ones to feature in the video. I wish I had the capacity to include all of them. Greetings. I am currently in the process of editing and wish to inform you that the subsequent narrative addresses themes of stalking. Therefore, if such content is distressing or triggering to you, consider yourself forewarned. You may proceed to skip to the next story if you prefer. Very well. This next email is titled, I transferred schools to escape my stalker ex, but he found me. The subscriber writes, I am a 17-year-old female, and I commenced dating a boy in my class, also 17 and male, during our junior year of high school. He was my first boyfriend, and I was his first girlfriend. We were both entirely new to this experience, and I was quite enthusiastic about being in a relationship, at least for the initial few months. He was exceedingly affectionate and loving, but it swiftly devolved into a situation where I felt overwhelmed and suffocated. We would spend 8 hours of our day together at school, and he would insist that I either text him, spend time with him outside of school hours, or remain on FaceTime with him until I went to sleep for the night. He also exhibited a degree of possessiveness and control. He would inquire about my friends and my activities during my leisure time. He would also scrutinize the posts I liked on my social media platforms. He did not exhibit aggressive behavior in these matters. Rather, he was persistently insistent and would almost sulk or become moody until I provided an answer. I did not question this behavior initially, but I gradually became increasingly uncomfortable, and the relationship began to feel like an obligation rather than a joy. I promptly concluded that we needed to take a break. I informed him that I was simply feeling overwhelmed and that we should allocate some time apart to deliberate on what would be most beneficial for us at a later juncture. I requested that he refrain from communicating with me for a week, at which point we would engage in further discussion. He did not receive this news favorably at all. He utilized this period to harass me both in person and online. He would send me lengthy text messages, call me multiple times a day, email me, and even had his mother contact me to implore me to grant him another opportunity. I was bewildered, as I had explicitly stated that we were merely taking a break and that this was not a definitive termination of our relationship. Eventually, the situation escalated to the point where he began to appear physically debilitated and sick at school, and his messages detailed his struggles and suffering. I felt a pang of guilt and fear for his well-being. He was enrolled in almost all of my classes, and we still had more than half of the academic year remaining, so I recognized that I could not evade him completely. I ultimately sent him a message, setting aside my own feelings entirely, solely to cease his incessant harassment and implied threats. For the remainder of the academic year, I continued to be in a relationship with him, but I suppressed a significant portion of my true self and my true feelings. We were, in essence, merely acquaintances, as we did not engage in any activities that would be considered characteristic of a romantic relationship. We had no interactions outside of academic settings, and I managed to limit our communication to texting and phone calls beyond school hours. While the general dynamic remained the same, he began to notice my growing unease and the palpable anxiety I felt about our connection. He would repeatedly plead with me to reconsider ending things, leaving me feeling trapped in a relationship I unequivocally did not desire. Even our mutual acquaintances observed the clear lack of alignment and compatibility between us, yet no words or actions from anyone could help him grasp the reality of the situation. As our senior year of high school commenced, I earnestly implored my parents to permit me to switch schools, viewing it as my sole escape route from this toxic environment. After persistent persuasion, my parents relented, allowing me to transfer and relocate to live with my older sister, who resided in a different part of the country. Consequently, I ended my relationship with my boyfriend, packed my belongings, and began attending my new educational institution. I proceeded to block my ex on all my social media platforms, his email address, and his phone number. For a period of several weeks, he made attempts to contact me through my friends and even acquired new phone numbers to reach me. By the time Christmas arrived, a sense of quiet had settled in, leading me to believe he had finally moved on. I experienced a feeling of liberation, something I hadn't felt in a full year. However, I soon recognized the magnitude of what I had done. I had left behind my friends and my entire familiar world and support system. I felt out of place and unwelcome at my new school. Adolescence can be unkind, and forging new friendships during one's senior year proved to be nearly insurmountable. Everyone already had established social circles and showed no inclination to welcome newcomers into their groups. A profound sense of homesickness and stark loneliness began to set in. I maintained contact with my friends from back home through social media, exchanging messages with them daily. I had always been an active participant on social media, often forming connections online. I started engaging in conversations with a girl my age online, and we quickly developed a friendship with someone I had never actually met in person. She was kind and confided in me about her own romantic struggles. I found her to be genuinely amusing, and we shared many common interests. She was quite active online, frequently posting updates and pictures of herself. She claimed to live in a neighboring state, and we often made casual plans to meet up someday. I grew to trust this girl and began to open up to her about my personal life. I shared my experiences with my ex-boyfriend, detailing my feelings about our relationship. I also mentioned other boys I had developed crushes on, acknowledging that I had chosen the wrong person previously. She was incredibly supportive, agreeing with nearly every point I made. We remained friends throughout our senior year, communicating almost daily. Subsequently, I began receiving follow requests from various Instagram accounts with peculiar usernames, and I immediately suspected it was my ex trying to reach me. I blocked each of these new accounts and utilized the feature that allows for blocking any other accounts the user might create. To my utter astonishment, I discovered that my new online confidant had also been blocked on Instagram. My closest friend, with whom I had shared my deepest thoughts over the past year, was revealed to be my ex-boyfriend, who now possessed intimate knowledge of my feelings towards him and my vulnerabilities. I have reread this correspondence a couple of times now, and each instance of reaching this juncture leaves me completely astounded and shocked. This behavior is undeniably erratic and dangerous. I cannot fathom that it was actually him the entire time pretending to be a girl. Nevertheless, returning to the point in the email, my feelings were far from positive, and I had very little to say in his favor. He was aware that I had been feigning any semblance of admiration for him throughout our entire relationship. I panicked, switched all my social media to private, and purged my accounts of any photographs or personal information that could identify me. The entire experience was profoundly distressing and traumatic, and it has made me hesitant to enter into any kind of relationship in the future. I am now 18 years old and have only had one dating experience, with no intention of adding to that count anytime soon. He has not troubled me recently, and I am planning to attend a university located even further from him geographically. I feel I have largely moved past it now and can even find humor in the situation, but what are your thoughts on what I could have done differently? I completely understand your reluctance to enter into a relationship following such an ordeal. If that had been my initial dating experience, I would likely have sworn off dating altogether for a long time. I suspect the comments section will offer more expert advice than I can provide. However, I am truly sorry that you felt so trapped that you had to change schools, but you appear to be an incredibly resilient individual, and you are navigating this situation admirably. We have encountered numerous instances of online deception lately, and I reiterate, exercise caution regarding whom you engage with online. You are inquiring about alternative courses of action you might have taken. In my opinion, terminating the relationship sooner and not prolonging it simply to appease him would have been the most prudent approach. However, I fully comprehend the circumstances you were in. It was your first relationship, and you were still discovering yourself and learning about boundaries. I absolutely do not wish to imply blame or fault on your part. This is where my perspective becomes limited, as this is not an experience I have undergone as a male. I fully acknowledge that for a woman, it can be daunting and scary to break up with someone who exhibits unstable tendencies, as one cannot predict their reactions or actions. To be fair, this was also his first relationship, but moving forward, I hope he learns to refrain from such predatory behavior in the future. Nonetheless, I am pleased to hear you are feeling more at ease about this now. I wish you great success in college and encourage you to take your time in pursuing your next relationship. There is absolutely no urgency or rush. This subsequent email is titled, "Does my crush like me?" You mentioned being 170 years old, so I will assume this is a typographical error and you are, in fact, 17 years old. We will proceed with that assumption. Alternatively, you might be my most senior subscriber by a considerable margin, which would be impressive. This subscriber writes, I, aged 170, assuming 17, female, and my crush, aged 17, male, are good friends. We conversed for a duration over the summer, and I expressed my desire to get to know him better and go on a date. I stated, even if he were to reject me, I would still want to remain friends, as I find him cool and interesting. He concurred, mentioning that he wasn't prepared for a relationship at that moment. Since then, we have grown closer, texting daily and engaging in conversations that last between 2 and 4 hours at times. When the two of us went out recently, he wore cologne, which is a sign of effort. He adhered strictly to the sidewalk protocol the entire time, instructing me to move to the left side for safety. We purchased boba tea, and he was displeased that I paid for it. To reimburse me, he spent $103 purchasing 3 vinyl records for me as a gift. He is exceedingly kind and insists that I not repay him for the records. He has confided in some of his friends that he would date me if circumstances permitted, but he is not permitted to date by his parents or rules. When I last inquired, he stated that we were simply very close friends. I feel like a puppet being manipulated by mixed signals. He also remembers minute details that I share with him. He proposed we go out again, and he told me I don't need to wear blush because my complexion is naturally rosy. Am I overthinking this? Does he like me? Or are we just friends? Yes, I believe this individual harbors feelings for you. At least that is the impression I am getting from the information you have provided. I anticipate that you will encounter many individuals your age who are not seeking a serious commitment, which is likely quite discouraging. But I am rooting for you and hoping it works out. And if you are genuinely 170 years old, you should certainly distance yourself from him. That would be unsettling and inappropriate. Okay, this next subscriber titled their email, Birthday Incident. They write, a few days ago, it was my 20th birthday. I organized a small lunch with 2 of my closest friends. We have been friends for 4 years, and we are inseparable. I appreciate your phrasing of being inseparable. They have a tendency to be habitually late, so I implored them to be punctual just this once for my special day. I specifically requested their arrival by 2:30 p.m., as the sushi establishment I selected is a rather upscale venue that closes at 4 p.m. before reopening for dinner service. On that particular day, I was already at the mall receiving a manicure at 1 p.m. Upon completion, they texted me to inform me they were en route to the restaurant. I consequently hurried to the restaurant to meet them. However, upon calling them once I had arrived at the restaurant, I discovered they had not yet departed from their residences. I was irritated, but I continued to wait patiently. I remained outside, but by 3:30 p.m., I had entered the restaurant, and the server informed me that the kitchen was about to close in 5 minutes. Therefore, my only recourse was to place my order promptly without them present. My friends finally arrived, and I became overwhelmed with emotion, breaking down in tears right there. I acknowledge my sensitivity, but I was genuinely hurt and frustrated by their lack of respect for my time. Consequently, I decided to return home early. I had lost my appetite, and perhaps a more mature individual would have proceeded to another venue to eat, but I was unable to do so in that state. Both friends accompanied me home. They offered a brief apology and suggested alternative dining options, but I was not in the mood to eat anything. While I should have addressed their apologies more directly, after a mere 5 minutes of minimal effort on their part, they retreated to my room to, quote, give me space. This further upset me, as I felt abandoned and isolated in my own home. Later that evening, I was expecting more friends to arrive for the celebration, so I occupied myself with decorating the house. My 2 close friends were present, but they did not engage in much conversation with me or try to cheer me up. The following day, I explained the reasons for my hurt feelings, stating that I wished they had made a more concerted effort to make amends and show they cared. Instead of resolving the issue, they sent me lengthy, passive-aggressive messages asserting that my personality was overly sensitive, immature, and gave the impression that I believed the world revolved around me. They even accused me of rudeness for not interacting with them as guests in my home. Yet to me, they are akin to family, and what house guest would enter my room without prior notification or permission? They further contended that I had prolonged the situation unnecessarily, that my actions were irrational, and that I could have simply chosen another establishment with them instead of going home. I never anticipated them to excessively placate me or beg for forgiveness. I simply desired some comfort and for them to be present with me emotionally, not to leave me isolated in my room. I now feel that they have harbored resentment towards me for some time and exploited this disagreement to express all their pent-up frustrations, as they also raised numerous other grievances regarding my personality and behavior. It is painful because I consistently speak of them with affection and respect to others. The notion that they have been criticizing me behind my back is truly agonizing and hurtful. If they harbored any issues, they could have simply communicated them to me beforehand. Why leverage this disagreement to unload everything onto me? Consequently, I am now uncertain of how to proceed with these friendships. Am I being immature and overly sensitive for experiencing such hurt? Should I maintain our friendship? Or is it more advisable to disengage and move on? You are absolutely not being immature for feeling hurt. Being over an hour late for a friend's birthday lunch is highly disrespectful, and your feelings of upset are entirely justified and valid. That being said, I must admit to being a friend who is chronically tardy myself. Therefore, I may need to recuse myself from offering an opinion on this matter, but I am never that late. That level of tardiness is rather unreasonable, especially considering they misled you by claiming they had left when they had not. Arriving late a few times is understandable, but, and I'm revealing a bit of myself here, if it's a consistent habit, it is inconsiderate. It simply indicates a lack of respect for other people's time, and your email has certainly prompted me to reflect on my own habits. Indeed, furthermore, I understand the feeling of people speaking negatively about you behind your back. It is profoundly unpleasant and betrayal-like. I am sorry that you feel your trust has been violated. Moving forward in your friendships, you should likely recognize that they do not reciprocate the same level of respect that you offer them. You may wish to prioritize other relationships in your life where individuals demonstrate the same respect and care that you extend to them. Here is a helpful tip for construction if you are dissatisfied with your building's progress and are concerned your subscribers will discover you are an incompetent builder. Simply make your build appear overgrown with vines and nature, and it will automatically look somewhat better and more intentional. You see, I was beginning to worry that I would have to discard this video, but now it is looking somewhat improved and aesthetic. I am not concerned about it anymore. I am clearly not concerned about it. You are concerned about it, though. Okay, this next subscriber writes, I am an 18-year-old male, and I am about to commence university studies. I have never kissed a girl nor experienced any form of romantic relationship. Approximately 90% of my male friends have been in relationships or have at least kissed a girl. Consequently, I feel as though I am missing out on a significant life experience, I suppose. I have had opportunities to kiss a girl, or at least attempt to kiss a girl at parties and festivals, but I have shied away due to a combination of a lack of confidence and uncertainty about whether it aligns with my long-term desires and values. I believe I may hold an idealized notion or blueprint for love, envisioning myself marrying my first kiss, much like my grandfather, whom I greatly admire and who passed away a couple of years ago. I hold this image of falling deeply in love with the first girl I fancy, leading to a happily ever after, and so forth. I attribute this perspective to the media I have consumed throughout my life, such as films and certain religious family influences that shaped my views. Recently, when discussing with my friends why I have not yet had a romantic connection with girls, I simply state that I am waiting until university to find a girlfriend, as if it were that straightforward and easy. I have always held the belief that one kisses, then dates, and then dates to marry eventually. I do not wish for my first kiss to be with someone I will never see again or with whom I do not have a genuine connection that progresses beyond a fleeting encounter. However, over the past 3 months, I have begun to question these beliefs and fear that this may stem from my yearning for a relationship and fear of being alone. Since approximately the age of 14, I have experienced a persistent sense of loneliness, even while being surrounded by a loving family and friends. However, I lack the romantic connection that I observe so many of my peers experiencing. This feeling ebbs and flows periodically but never fully dissipates. Therefore, in conclusion, I feel that I may have developed a fear of vulnerability or of offering something that should feel profoundly special. A first kiss, a relationship. I would like to know if this is something others can relate to and how other individuals have encountered their initial romantic relationships. I am uncertain of what I am seeking from this message, other than to confide in someone, as I have not had the opportunity to share this with anyone else, nor have I given myself the time to properly contemplate it. I would greatly appreciate your insights into why I am thinking this way or any advice on how I should address this apprehension towards loving or being loved. It is remarkable. I actually experienced very similar feelings to yours when I was younger. I entered into a relationship just before college, believing I needed prior experience to be normal. And let me tell you, that is the wrong motivation for starting a relationship. But I had all these preconceived notions about what romantic interactions should entail, which placed a significant amount of undue pressure on me. Consequently, you end up stressing about something that should actually feel exhilarating and fun. And then the pressure to have the perfect romantic moment escalates, and you ultimately accomplish nothing at all. Oh dear, this is hitting quite close to home for me personally. If I could go back in time, I would advise myself not to worry so excessively about finding the right person or the opportune moment. That phase of life is about experimentation and learning from experiences, even if they are awkward or peculiar. Literally everything feels that way at that age. Approach this at whatever pace feels appropriate for you. There can be immense pressure emanating from societal expectations or from your friends, and this is fundamentally a personal matter that concerns no one else but you. You must do what is right for you. Proceed at your own rhythm. Do not place excessive pressure on yourself. Be open, and these things will transpire when they are meant to happen naturally. Let us proceed to another message. Okay, this one is titled, "My Best Friend Ghosted Me." So, I am a girl, and at the time I was attending my previous school. I became mentally unwell due to the academic demands and stress and had to take a leave from my studies. I withdrew from everything. School, my phone, all communication went silent. I did not reach out to friends, family, or anyone during that dark period. Naturally, my friends became concerned and texted me incessantly, including my best friend at the time, who was also a girl. They inquired about my absence and my well-being, which I deeply appreciated their concern. I especially valued my best friend's messages, as she is not often on her phone and does not text frequently. After a period, I recovered and reassured them that I was well but would be transferring schools mid-year. They were pleased that I was recuperating but saddened by my departure from the school. My best friend and I communicated quite regularly around that time, and we met up at cafes, enjoying ourselves and catching up. Subsequently, I organized my 16th birthday celebration and invited all my classmates for one final gathering before my move. She remained silent throughout the entire party, which I anticipated, given her quiet demeanor. She primarily converses with me one-on-one. Following that event, we continued to check in on each other and converse, albeit less frequently. Gradually, she began taking longer to respond to messages and communicated less and less, which I accepted, as she mentioned being more active on Instagram, a platform I did not use at the time. Then, on the 1st of March, I sent her a message, and she did not reply. I did not dwell on it and sent another message 2 weeks later. No response. By that point, I had already moved schools and had not seen her in quite some time. 2 more weeks passed, another text, still no reply. A month elapsed with more texts sent, yielding no response. May came and went and still silence. It is now July, and the silence persists completely. At that juncture, I downloaded Instagram in a futile attempt to ascertain if she would respond or see my posts. I shared my account with her, expecting her to follow me, but to no avail. There was absolute quiet and no interaction. I frantically tried to recall where I might have erred or offended her, but it seems our friendship held no significance for her in the end. I cherished her deeply and valued our bond. We shared lunch together every day. We studied collaboratively, confided in each other, and shared numerous moments of laughter and joy. I suppose a degree of separation emerged between us, creating a divide that grew wider over time. I still hold her in high regard and am hopelessly clinging to the assumption that her phone may have malfunctioned, or something similar occurred to prevent her from replying. I am saddened that we are no longer friends, but I am grateful for the time we shared together. I suppose some individuals are meant to be in our lives for only a chapter, not the whole book. I receive emails similar to this one quite frequently, and frankly, I can relate to it personally. In high school, I had a friend with whom I spent every day. We shared all our classes and conversed constantly, and then after graduation, it was complete radio silence. I never heard from them again. It is genuinely disheartening and sad. However, at that age, individuals are still learning how to maintain relationships, whether with friends or romantic partners. And it is not necessarily indicative of anything you did wrong. Distance is simply challenging to manage. Some individuals are not adept at communicating when someone is not physically present in their daily life. It is certainly something that I had to learn over an extended period of time. However, as I have stated before, it is crucial for both friends to invest effort in the relationship. If one friend is shouldering all the responsibility while the other merely reaps the benefits of having someone who cares about them, that does not constitute a genuine friendship, especially when distance increases, necessitating strong communication skills and mutual effort. I have observed several comments inquiring about the colossal, unsightly cobblestone cube situated in the center of my base. Very early on, I conceived the idea of constructing a base composed of fractals and complex patterns. Consequently, I was merely testing how it would appear in the game. It is one of the initial structures I built in the game world. And I don't know. For some reason, I cannot bring myself to dismantle it now. It is unattractive, but it has become an institution and a landmark in my world. I'm not sure why I keep it. I simply desire this base to evoke the sensation of being inside my own mind, a place with a multitude of nonsensical elements scattered about, devoid of any consistent structure or theme. Anyway, I will cease my rambling. Let us proceed with reading another email. How do I tell my parents that I cannot continue in our religion? I have been raised in the Mormon faith my entire life. Extremely devoutly Mormon, attending church every Sunday, participating in Wednesday youth activities, visiting temples, the whole 9 yards of religious observance. The issue is, I am uncertain if I actually believe any of it anymore. I am 18 years old and have recently completed high school. In our church, this signifies eligibility to embark on a mission trip. I reside in Utah, and societal expectations there necessitate undertaking a mission. As a side note, I have been diagnosed with ADHD, and we are also exploring the possibility of an autism diagnosis. Considering all of this, I cannot afford to squander 2 years of my life on an endeavor that involves aimlessly wandering through unfamiliar places, engaging with strangers about a subject I'm uncertain of my own convictions on. Furthermore, if I were to abandon everything, I'm unsure of my mother's reaction. She would be both incensed and mortified if she discovered that all the updates she's shared with family and friends regarding my mission registration were in vain and based on a lie. My sister also departed from the church, a decision that initially met with considerable disapproval, but that was some time ago, and my mother still cherishes her despite the difference. Beyond this, I harbor numerous hobbies and interests that would likely invite ridicule from my family should they ever discover them. The notion of absconding and relocating as swiftly as possible has crossed my mind, but that feels like a measure of absolute desperation and fear. What course of action should I pursue? I selected this email precisely because I suspected someone in the comments might relate to my predicament. I possess limited knowledge of the Mormon Church specifically, but I believe a wealth of online resources exists concerning disaffiliation and leaving the faith. I wholeheartedly concur that one should not participate in something one doesn't genuinely believe in. And you are 18 now, a fully independent adult capable of making your own life choices, particularly regarding matters of faith and belief. It appears your sister's transition was reasonably smooth. I suggest discussing her experience with her. Apparently, consulting with sisters is a recurring theme in this video, but it would be a sensible starting point for you. Ascertain how she navigated conversations with your parents, and then peruse the comments section. Perhaps others have encountered similar circumstances and can offer advice. The path of least resistance would be to embark on the mission trip and subsequently gradually disengage from your faith while away. However, it sounds as though you desire an immediate departure and honesty. Consequently, you may need to engage in that difficult dialogue with your parents. I acknowledge this is a rather brief response, but I prefer not to offer extensive advice without sufficient understanding of the situation and family dynamics. Now, let's move on to another submission. This reader shares, for close to a year now, I, a 17-year-old male, have been part of a band with my high school friends. After some deliberation, we are contemplating the expulsion of one of our members. When the band initially formed, a friend from my high school marching band and I connected over our shared musical tastes. While our general preferences align, our individual inclinations differ enough to enable us to introduce each other to novel sounds regularly. We resolved to collaborate and produce music that resonated with us personally. This arrangement persisted for a period of time. He gravitated towards percussion, while I focused on guitar and vocals. It became apparent quite quickly that a bassist was essential to provide a complete sonic foundation for the band. Finding a bassist who was not only competent enough to join the group but also available proved to be a considerable challenge. Nevertheless, after a few months, we enlisted a mutual acquaintance, also from our marching band experience. Initially, everything was harmonious and productive. He's not a virtuoso, but he's a reliable player. Moreover, he possesses a good sense of humor and is pleasant company to be around. For at least the initial few months of his involvement, he was an active participant, contributing to songwriting and attending rehearsals regularly. However, subsequent to that initial period, his engagement has become increasingly problematic and lacking. Securing his attendance at rehearsals has become a struggle, and even when present, he seems more inclined towards socializing than actively participating in the musical creation process. The typical scenario involves us playing for approximately 30 minutes at most, followed by a break for lyrical refinement. During this downtime, he becomes easily distracted, losing his momentum for playing, which consequently derails our progress and focus. My bandmate and I have been transparent with him about our ambition to elevate the band to a more professional level, with aspirations of touring and releasing music with some regularity. The issue, however, is that given his apparent lack of dedication to contributing to the band's efforts, our professional aspirations seem distant and unlikely. On one hand, I understand the difficulty of balancing work, personal life, and band commitments. To his credit, he manages a great deal. He maintains employment and, of course, we are all students and he has a girlfriend in addition to his band obligations. Yet, my bandmate and I face similar responsibilities and still manage to allocate time for songwriting and consistent rehearsals. If we were to dismiss him, it wouldn't necessarily spell the end of the band. I am proficient enough on the bass guitar to manage it myself and could handle double duty during recording sessions. However, we are unable to perform live without a bassist. and his departure would likely impede our progress, as we would need to find a replacement before we could genuinely advance. My inquiry is whether parting ways with him and continuing with a more committed band member is the advisable course of action, or if we should endure the situation until a more opportune moment arises. I am so averse to confrontation that I would likely retain him in the band to avoid conflict. I would be exceptionally inept at initiating these discussions with the bassist. Therefore, I believe it is commendable that you are fostering open communication within the band and being forthright about your intentions. I have no prior experience in a band, so I cannot accurately gauge the difficulty of finding musicians. It seems likely that securing a bassist would be quite challenging. Therefore, I would suggest granting him another opportunity to improve. Engage in another conversation and explicitly convey that if he fails to demonstrate commitment and take the band seriously, you may consider pursuing a different direction and seeking an alternative bassist. However, if after one or two more discussions the behavior persists, then it is time to let him go. Find someone who will share your band's aspirations with the same fervor and dedication. I am, however, pleased that you are creating music. If you ever release any material, please send me an update via email. I would be eager to hear it. Let's proceed to another story. This one is titled, "My Boyfriend's Mother Intensely Dislikes Me." For some background, my boyfriend, who is 20 years old, and I, a 19-year-old female, began dating during our senior year of high school. We are now entering our sophomore year of college, and we maintain a long-distance relationship. He resides approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes away. Neither of us possesses a vehicle, which makes frequent meetings challenging and expensive. I am not religious, but upon our initial meeting, I perceived my boyfriend's mother as an exceptionally kind individual, almost angelic in her demeanor. She was remarkably amiable, and I genuinely believed we were forming a positive connection. However, I began to notice subtle warning signs shortly after our high school graduation. I originate from a different country, which limits my opportunities to visit my family. My grandmother traveled a considerable distance to my city to attend my graduation, and we had planned a joint family celebration. His mother deliberately positioned my family at the furthest table from the rest of the attendees. She spoke minimally with my family and evidently held my grandmother in low regard. She also consistently referred to my boyfriend in possessive terms, emphasizing him as solely hers and not an independent adult. My boyfriend secured a summer internship at his university, necessitating his absence for a significant portion of the summer. We spent considerable time together prior to his departure. His mother, to put it bluntly, was constantly monitoring his activities and whereabouts. She would call him multiple times while we were on dates, inquiring about his whereabouts, why he wasn't home, or why he wasn't attending to his younger siblings. On occasion, she would initiate calls with the sole purpose of instigating an argument, despite being fully aware of his location, as he always informed her of his plans in advance. Suddenly, she began to isolate me from his family, fabricating reasons for my absence during events where I had previously been welcomed without issue. I am perceptive enough to understand subtle cues, so I ceased visiting his home, and we reduced our frequency of meetings to allow him more personal time with his family. This measure did not seem to appease her, as in her presence, I felt an undeniable sense of her desire for me to be absent from their lives. To expedite matters and avoid unnecessary length, I will summarize the intervening period. We are now a few days away from his departure for college for the fall semester. They had another significant argument concerning me, and as a consequence, she refused to drive him to college. My closest friend, who is capable of driving, transported us instead. My boyfriend informed me that during our journey to school, she bombarded him with text messages, including sentiments such as, "I observed your happiness with her, and I understand you no longer desire us in your lives and you have no regard for your family," and so on. In this section of the email, the subscriber further details numerous instances where her boyfriend's mother employed disparaging language and expressed negative opinions both directly and indirectly. While I am not entirely comfortable elaborating, rest assured, the content is highly unfavorable and hurtful. I will continue with the remainder. Following these remarks, my boyfriend's interactions with his family became infrequent. However, Recently, he engaged in a phone conversation with his mother and his other sister, as their relationship had shown signs of improvement. I was genuinely pleased for him until his sister insinuated that I was exploiting him for financial and sexual gain. His mother proceeded to laugh at these accusations, and I felt an intense urge to seize the phone and confront both of them immediately. Honestly, I doubt I have ever experienced such profound anger and injustice. My boyfriend remained silent throughout the exchange and ultimately ended the call. I was exceptionally upset with him, but I recognized it was not his responsibility, and directing my frustration towards him would benefit neither of us. We are approaching our 2-year relationship anniversary, and it has been a year since these issues began. I am uncertain of the appropriate course of action. I cannot reasonably expect him to sever ties with his entire family due to their derogatory comments about me. Furthermore, I do not wish for him to lose his family over a trivial disagreement that should have been resolved by now. However, I am utterly exhausted by the constant accusations and the inability to defend myself without escalating the existing drama. I deeply love my boyfriend and understand the importance of his family to him. I do not want to diminish that connection. His mother has persistently attempted to force him to choose between us since the beginning, and that is precisely what I aim to prevent. My apologies for the lengthy explanation, but I require impartial perspectives. This situation is truly unfortunate and difficult. I suspect she is experiencing distress due to his transition into a new life phase where he is less reliant on her for support. I sympathize with her transferring those emotions onto you, but her statements, both to your face and behind your back, are utterly unacceptable and abusive. It is imperative that your boyfriend understands this clearly. I am confident he already does, but unfortunately, a significant portion of the responsibility for resolving this predicament will likely fall upon him to manage his family. He must engage in a serious conversation with his mother, clearly articulating his love for you and his desire to continue a committed relationship, while also acknowledging that she is creating considerable difficulty in maintaining relationships with both you and his family. Alternatively, he may need to further distance himself from his family, a decision I personally believe would not be ideal for his well-being. However, if you wish to progress in this relationship, it is probable that you will need to cultivate a positive relationship with his family eventually. This burden does not rest on you alone. He must ensure that his family treats you with respect. Moreover, you need to make certain your boyfriend comprehends that you will not tolerate ongoing abuse from them. For me, a healthy relationship includes fostering a positive connection with one's partner's family. Always remember that if a situation becomes excessively toxic, you always have the option to disengage and leave for your own mental health. Regardless, I sincerely hope his mother ceases her detrimental treatment of you, and that you both manage to resolve this matter peacefully. The reason I decided to transform this area into a library was due to an idea I had, to transcribe the emails you all send into book form and then house them within this library. I find that concept quite appealing. It integrates your narratives into the fabric of this virtual world. The enchanting room is progressing nicely. That was another motivation for establishing this library. Now for a more lighthearted anecdote. This reader writes, "Here is an amusing story, and it is quite brief. During my freshman year, a young lady and I attended the homecoming dance together. We were both aware of our mutual attraction. We were dancing to a slow song, and I suggested we attempt a dance dip. For those unfamiliar, a dip is a specific dance maneuver where one partner leans back supported by the other. She informed me that the last time she attempted a dip, she had been dropped by her partner. Looking her directly in the eyes, I declared my superior strength compared to the individual who had dropped her, and then, to her surprise, I proceeded to drop her as well. Upon assisting her to her feet, she simply laughed and stated that she did not mind, but that she would hold me accountable for the bruise on her elbow. She has yet to let me forget it. You know what? I admire your boldness and willingness to try. A commendable effort in attempting a new dance move. That was precisely the moment to take that initiative. And you will certainly never drop her again when you attempt to dip her, though she may not permit it after that experience. I am pleased you both can find humor in the situation. It is undoubtedly far less embarrassing than my own high school dance experience. During my junior year of high school, I invited a girl to the winter formal dance in front of her boyfriend, whom I was completely unaware she had. It was, without question, the single most mortifying experience of my entire high school tenure. Therefore, rest assured, your moment of embarrassment pales in comparison to mine. I am actually quite pleased with how effortlessly I can now traverse the cave systems. Perhaps the creation of the opening was not a misstep after all. I do, however, appreciate the library. I believe it turned out rather well. It is certainly peculiar, undeniably so, but I find the peculiarity rather appealing and unique. This is the completed enchanting room. I dedicated a considerable amount of time to its development off-camera. And here are today's stories. I have transcribed them into book format. Creating books in Minecraft is oddly cumbersome and time-consuming. It required a significant amount of time to copy and paste these entries line by line, but these represent the inaugural collection of stories to be housed in the new library. In conclusion, those are all the subscriber stories from Minecraft that I have for you today. My sincere gratitude once again to everyone who has written in, and thank you to all who are watching. I am endeavoring to be more concise in my concluding remarks.